Hello, my friends. Welcome to Quartet. It's very nice to have you with us today. We come to you every 2 weeks, four of us usually, to talk about the extraordinary kind of change that's going on in the world today. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and this is one of a number of programs that the Arlington Institute sponsors, and you can find out more about us at arlingtoninstitute.org. Usually Gregg Braden is here and Kingsley Dennis is here along with Penny Kelly, but Kingsley and Gregg have gotten themselves obligated otherwise, and so they're not with us today, and so it's a duet, I guess, between Penny and myself. Hello, dear Penny. How are you?
Hello, it's good to be here, and we'll just make up for those two rogue people that couldn't show up.
That's correct. We can do this without them, today at least.
Yeah.
So, maybe we can start as we usually do by just saying what's been on your mind, what you've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks.
Gosh, you know what? I don't have anything to report there. I've spent the last 2 weeks having my next baby, which is putting out my next book, and it's very similar to having a baby. You can't do anything else. And so I have been aware of a little bit of the jargon, but nothing in depth. So I'm way behind in terms of what's going on with the world. And that, you know what? That feels nice. It's like, yeah, let that world do whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly everything's up for grabs, increasingly so. There are, multiple sources, the ones that I follow at least, talk never endingly, I guess, or increasingly about the fact that this is going to get a lot more disruptive before it solidifies. And they are all pointing toward big things happening here in the last 2 weeks here in the United States, at least, or the last 2 months as we go toward this election. And there are real questions in my mind, at least, about whether the election is going to happen this time. It seems to be existential for the Democrat Party, at least, and that they probably are going to try any and everything that they can in order to keep the thing from happening. I don't know. What do you think?
I actually did a piece of work around that when I was working on my look-see. And that it does look like the election is totally disrupted in a way that is very carefully organized to make it look like it's all circumstantial and coincidental. And I was looking at, okay, what do we got going here? What's actually happening in terms of the two sides? And the two sides were the people who want to take the US down and the people who want to preserve it. And the people who want to preserve it look like they were divided into two camps. One was the rule of law camp, and the other was just get it over with. Let's have a coup.
Yeah.
And so, in following those, all three of those tracks into the future, everybody lost.
Yeah.
Everybody, except the American population that was really, I'm going to say, under the gun to have to come up with, okay, who are we now? And where are we going? And how are we going to get there?
Let me set this up by saying the headline in a couple of the news sites I follow in this last week, earlier this week, had headlines that talked about the fact that in the new defense authorization bill, that were buried way down in the back of it, it was where these these news organizations were suggesting were these amazing kinds of comments saying that there was a significant amount of money that was being put in place for a really expanded and significant kind of program inside DOD and who knows where else, to monitor these unidentified foreign flying objects, UFOs or UAPs, anomalous aerial phenomenology is what they call it. And the thing that they made, the interesting point that they made was that in this bill is the comment that says that number one, that these kind of events that the military has been tracking for a long time are increasing exponentially. And what that means and where they get that information and what they're trying to say, I don't know. But what they're clearly what they're trying to communicate is that the significance of this subject is increased dramatically, and it is becoming, I can tell you, a major kind of issue for the Congress, to say nothing about the military. It's a fascinating kind of time, and so it raises all these questions. And the last time we had these questions and we talked about what would you say to an alien? And what we did was I posited that and positioned it as a kind of a diplomatic initiative. It was very useful, our conversation. We got a lot of good comments from people who really appreciated that conversation. But more than that, we got some comments and we got some questions. And so what I thought we'd do today is just kind of work our way through these things and talk about expand upon the general topic. There are a couple kind of threads that go through these questions, and one of them of significance is that a number of thoughtful folks said, well, wouldn't we want to find out why they were here and what they were doing and why they were starting this right now?
I think the big issue around this whole subject is how much do you say at any given time? Because what I want is for people to begin to understand in this really gentle, quiet, matter of fact way that there are other people from other places and that they haven't just arrived. They've been here for hundreds, thousands of years. And the fact that we're just getting around to recognizing that, to admitting that, to saying, let's make this public, that's a failure of government, in my opinion,
Yeah.
but that's just my opinion. So they're here because there's a lot of them here. There's a lot of other people here on, and above the planet. And that's, it's hard for people to get their mind around that. But I would say, for example, if you take your car and you drive across the yard or the field, you have no clue how many bugs, critters you're squishing underneath those tires. You're just not paying attention to that dimension of life because it doesn't concern you, because they don't have the same issues that you have, and so on. And that is the same thing that has been the situation, or a good description of the situation with others. They're so far beyond us in so many ways that they cannot bother with us. We get out, and sit on the porch maybe in the evening, and we swat at the bugs, or we put mosquito spray on or whatever, because we're afraid of getting bit. And that's the same thing that they avoid dealing with us, the same reason why we shoot first and ask questions later. Or we say, let's capture this thing and take it apart and examine it, as if it's not alive, as if it's not a living being. And so our ignorance is what precedes us. And that has been something that most ETs, others, OPs, other people, have not wanted to be any part of. And since I'm going to say maybe the 1980s or 90s, they've had this let's stay out of the way attitude, and then it began to shift. There is a program here to help the people, and that shift constituted when you said the UFO presence has been increasing exponentially. That's on purpose, and that has been a deliberate attempt to get the governments and the population everywhere to wake up to, hey, there's other people here. It brings up that whole issue of privacy. What do you know? We have all these laws and all these rules. HIPAA is a good example. Oh no, we need privacy. Why do we need privacy? Because there's so many crooks out there that are trying to manipulate. There's so many judges out there that are making judgments about who you are and how you are and why you're doing what you're doing, that we have had to institute laws, and they're really not very effective. They're only for the peons. The people who are in control of all the information have access to all of it. And I've said for a long, long time, if we're going to become telepathic, you have to give up your privacy, period.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. So let me share something that then we can go back into all those things you just brought up. So we here on this planet now, we think we're the only ones, but the majority of the population here is third dimensional physical beings. Okay, so there are characteristics of a three-dimensional or third-dimensional system, and that system then outgrows their starting system, and it becomes a fourth dimensional system, and then that outgrows their system, and they become fifth dimensional and sixth. And I haven't been above the sixth. It's too hard to. It's really hard to even get any kind of fix on the sixth dimension because it is so non-physical. But let me share some characteristics of each of those dimensions. Okay. So the third dimension is 100% physical, very, very densely physical. It is based on competition because everybody's struggling to survive. It is based on aggression, which is some of that competition. They're very third dimensional people are very aggressive. It is based on utilitarian. It's a utilitarian kind of level that uses things without regard for their consciousness or their energy. It just uses things, okay? Blows up mountains, digs holes, big holes in the earth, whatever. They're very destructive. They don't mean to be, but they are very destructive, just in the way that they see the world, etc. They're very short-lived, thank God. And they ignore, mostly it's ignorance of the stability and the intercessory points, I'll call it, where you could impact a system because it's at a moment where if you envision a system as all of these rotating, interacting spirals of energy that are moving, and it gets into a moment where it's kind of loosely, it's not as tightly integrated, you can have a big impact. Well, third dimensional humans don't really take that into account. They just talk about or deal with the physical interactions, maybe the chemical interactions, but they aren't really aware or able to utilize the energetic interactions, and that's why they don't last very long. So when they outgrow their system, they begin to move toward fourth dimensional living.
And by outgrow, you mean kind of evolutionary, higher level of consciousness, right?
Right. Yeah, you come to this place where you say, dang, this isn't working, or that has disappointed me again and again, or why do we do this? And so you begin to search for some other way of doing things. So eventually you move to fourth dimension. Fourth dimension is again physical, okay? And it's the last dimension that is 100% physical. Um, so the characteristics of fourth dimension are it's very cooperative. They're no longer competing with one another. That's a whole system change right there
So
from competition.
this could be the 1,000 years of peace or something that is spiritual.
5,000.
5,000. Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. They are not only cooperative, they're corrective. So now the fourth dimensional people who are still physical are looking at their legacy and saying, holy cow, we really made a mess. We have to clean this up. So they're very corrective. They're fixing, they're healing, they are adjusting things in every area of life, every sector. And that's from governance right on through to the arts, technology, etc. The next thing is that they are beginning to be, well, let me say this, they're also very defensive. They're not aggressive anymore, but they will defend. And they defend very effectively using energetic systems. So those right there, cooperative, corrective, and defensive, only defensive. They will use weapons. They do have weapons, but they won't use them to hurt others. And then they are the beginning, the fourth dimensional systems are beginning to be generative. So that means that they generate things. They don't just build things. And that's a whole conversation all by itself. That
But
generative,
you need to explain it. What does it mean?
um,
Don't build it. What do you do? How do you
that
do it?
means that you build it, but first you build it in accordance with the laws and the rules of consciousness and energy.
Mm.
Okay. And so, and that is based on do no harm. So when you begin to be generative, you will do no harm and you won't do things that create harm. Even if you think they're going to bring you more money or more fame or more power or more whatever, that's like, no, that doesn't work in the long run. So generative is do no harm. They are very much longer lived. Why? Because they are so busy correcting and figuring out how do we live in harmony with these energies that we are made of. And the last thing is, I would say it's most of their technology, in fact, all of it is based on the study of the interaction and stability of energy systems, energy interactions, plasma interactions. So, so that's fourth dimensional, and that works for a very long time. People generally will become interested in how do I become more? If I'm
Oh.
being, as much as I can be, how do I become more? And that leads to fifth dimensional, which
Let me
is,
just say one thing about the fourth, what you said, and that is when you talk about it being focused on the development and response and to energy, that is the next logical step to the way the world is going right now, because it's all about electricity. And what you're
yeah,
moving into is all electric world for
I don't,
whatever value that particularly is. And it's in a transition, so it's not there. But the next step from that then would be an energetic world, and how you
right.
work into subtler and more less obvious kind of
Right.
aspects of electricity.
Right. And I forgot one thing that I probably should add to my list here. In the third dimension, consciousness comes from the brain. That's
Mm.
what people think. In the fourth dimension, consciousness is seen as an energy tool. And that's a big change right there as well.
Well, I want to thank you, but I want to thank Maria Coronas and Joe Jackson and Pete and
Yep.
Jean Marie Sen and Stephen Hyde and Kate Jones, all for They're very thoughtful kind of questions, and we appreciate it
Right.
very much. And thank you, Penny Kelly, for this. We would clearly call it unique perspective
Okay.
on all of these subjects, and it's very helpful as
I
well.
hope so.
And thank all of you who are viewers. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah.
And we hope that you'll send us some questions or some comments for the next time around, and that you'll come back and be with us in Quartet in 2 weeks. Now, you should know that in 2 weeks is about the 10th of September. And on the 10th of September, Penny is coming to Berkeley Springs, and Gregg Braden is coming to Berkeley Springs. And there's an outside chance the government might change their mind about mandating shots for foreigners to come into this country. And if that would change, then Kingsley Dennis, who will be coming with us. In any case, we'll connect with Kingsley virtually, if not physically. And we're going to produce a quartet from here in Berkeley Springs. And you can be part of the studio audience, and you can be part of that. And we're going to do What's Up, which is the little half-hour program that Gregg and I do. And we just talk about things and what we've been thinking about. And so it's going to be a really special day. And we hope that whether you can be with us personally here and physically in our beautiful little resort town, or whether you are otherwise constrained and you want to just plug in with live streaming, it makes no difference where you are, and you can do that. It's going to be a delightful and wonderful time. We're going to produce Quartet and What's Up in the morning, and then Gregg is going to carry on all afternoon, as he does so well. All about transhumanism in 2030 and what the direction is going toward they're trying, and how in many kind of ways that the powers that be are trying to take us away from humanism and trying to make it integrate us with technology and so on. And we'll talk about how you can take the other path, which is the path that we're all interested in. So that's the 10th of September. So come and be with us. And thank you. Thank you for being with us here at Quartet in this abbreviated kind of or truncated version of the quartet. And we hope you'll come back again. So thanks so much.